Let's get an update from the Rio Grande Valley Port of Brownsville. Our port, Ed Campirano, is the chief of our Port of Brownsville. I know that there was a recent report in the newsletter looking at the economic impact of our port and how growth over the past 10 years has been rather significant. If you want to share some of the numbers that we've seen at our port, Chief.
Well, I think, we've talked about it in the past. The last 10 years have been pretty substantial. And really, if you look at it, even the last 5 years have been very, very good for us. I mean, we've shown growth all the way across the board. We've showed growth in tonnages, cargo moves through the Port of Brownsville. We've more than doubled in the last 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen incremental growth every year in the 5 to 7%, pretty steady. Some years better, some years not so good. Of course, that translates into not only commodity movements, it also translates into revenue. Our revenues have been very good over the course of that period. And it also means that you're starting to see growth inside the port, not only with potential new cargoes, but also the fact that our terminals are growing. We're seeing expansion from our existing customers over that period. That's good, as well as new customers coming into the port. So all of those issues bode well. The port is also very, very well positioned over the next 10 years with all of the announcements that we've had in the last 3 or 4 with the big projects. That's going to be substantial. I mean, the port is positioned to triple its numbers over the next decade or going through the end of the decade. So we're in very, very good shape going forward as well.
On the tonnage side, 15.2 million tons of diverse cargo. Is most of that steel, though, Chief? I mean, let's get the heaviest out there.
I will tell you that the number one bulk commodity, in other words, the one single one is going to be, by volume, is going to be steel, and it's slab steel. I think this year we're going to move possibly anywhere between 5.2 to 5.6 million tons. So that is the number one, but you're also seeing on the refined product market, with the liquid commodities, that's also strong growth. We've seen input in other steel trades. Over the last 18 months, we've seen quite a bit of increase in aluminum coming through the port. And that stands to reason in the sense that as you see the automobile manufacturing in Mexico begin to scale up post-COVID, a lot of the new automobile manufacturers are incorporating aluminum into their construction, trying to make vehicles lighter, more efficient. So we've seen quite an uptake on aluminum as well. So, but our aggregate movements are continue to stay robust. We see a pretty diverse group of cargo. Cement is continuing to grow as it comes through the port. Same thing with sugar. We move a lot of bulk sugar for domestic consumption through the Port of Brownsville. So it's not just the steel. It's actually growing across the board. So we're excited about that. We've always wanted not to put all our eggs in one basket. So the more we can diversify, the better we will be to weather any blips in markets. So we're doing well.
Ed Campirano is director of the Port of Brownsville, the Rio Grande Valley Port of Brownsville, and with operating revenue for the 2022, $38 million is what had been reported compared to, and you crossed the $30 million mark. Where does all that money go, Chief? Do we reinvest? What happens with all that revenue?
Yeah. One of the things, yes, we are, the port runs, the business, we run it like, you heard that comment, let's run it like a business. Well, in our case, we have to. We don't rely on any tax revenue for port operations. So all of the revenue that we use for capital improvements, that we use for investment, is basically reinvesting. I'll give you an example. This year we'll probably break $40 million in operating revenue for the first time in the history of the port.
Wow. And
our operating expenses have always been in the $18-19 million. So, at the end of the day, you can kind of almost look at, we put back 50 cents on the dollar, sometimes higher, back into the bottom line every year. So, that revenue is what we've been able to accumulate over time, put us in a position to make major capital improvements. our last report on our cash on hand and investments that we have was $108 million. So, we're in very good financial shape. But again, nothing you do at the port is small. That Dock 11 project that we talked about the other day, where we got $11.5 million, where the estimated cost of the whole project is $35. So that difference comes from the port. But the road improvements that we're doing right now at a little over $6 billion, we're paying for that ourselves. All of the capital we do. So again, we don't depend on tax or any other form of revenue that we get from either state government or federal government. Ports have to generate their own income. And so that money gets put back into the port operations, and really more importantly, gets put back into port capital improvements.
Ed Campirano, he's the director of the Rio Grande Valley Port of Brownsville. We're getting an economic status report for our port. I guess all that expanding revenue, Chief, all those millions of dollars more coming in as the port continues to grow, seems like exponentially now. Looks like you got some extra money for maybe more, I don't know, maybe some more cranes for those barges with some cargo containers.
Well, absolutely. But what I will tell you, the biggest project, obviously, is the deepening of the ship channel. We still have a cost to bear on that major project, even though a lot of the money is coming from our private sector partners and some of it from the federal government. The port share is still going to be substantial. So, we can't lose sight of those big major projects, because without those, we can't expand. But yes, new cranes, new equipment, dock upgrades, all those things have to occur as we continue to keep up with the growth at the port.
The Maquilas, Monterrey area, Saltillo, northern Mexico, the industrial north, usually a leading indicator of what's taking place in the economy, because as the orders either come in or don't to those suppliers and those components and those manufacturers in the industrial north of Mexico, usually an indication of where the economy is headed around here. And I'm guessing by all the aluminum and steel that you're shoveling over to Monterrey and Saltillo and other places, I'm guessing there's still a lot of strength in U.S. manufacturing and northern Mexico manufacturing.
Oh, without a doubt. Our biggest influence in terms of not only the border region, but it's the Monterrey area all the way up to San Luis Potosi. And you're so right, especially with that kind of commodity, with the steel movements and the aluminum movements. But, we also fuel the frontera in terms of, trucking, in terms of lubricants for industry. All of that comes through the Port of Brownsville. So, again, our business is very heavily influenced by the economics of Mexico and the integrated economy that we have here in the region. Our rail car moves, 85% of our rail car moves are going into Mexico. And, we're the railroad's largest customer. We will probably move more than 80,000 loaded rail cars this year, which over the last 4 years, our railroad has been growing at a roughly 20% clip every year. Right. And every year in the last 4 or 5 years, we've eclipsed a record, 40,000, 50,000, 60,000, 70,000. We'll go over 80 this time. So it won't be too long before we're going over 100,000 cars a year.
Have we ever been named, has our port ever been named the official port of Monterrey of manufacturing?
No, I don't think
I wonder
we
if have.
We could, Well, for obviously we're a very important port to northern Mexico, Monterrey. And that
would be a nice label, a nice badge to have. If we could finagle that with Monterrey, EDC, Northern Mexico economic folks. But anyway, just something to think about. Thank you, Chief. Continued success. Ed Campirano, he's the director of the Rio Grande Valley Port of Brownsville.